Today's episode sponsored by our friends at PGX Comics, the Gen X preferred place to get your comics graded and in case, shipping nationwide. Hello and welcome to an exciting episode of Codename New 202. Hi, I'm your presenter, Shabu Are You. So what better way to ring in the joy and goodwill of Christmas than by looking into some evil? That's right. This unboxing video, which we haven't done in the past month or so, was originally slated for Halloween. I had sent these books out to PGX at the end of September, thinking that, I know I'm asking much, but if the guys could somehow get it in at the end, around Halloween time or at the beginning of November. But, it arrived here in the beginning of November. Still, if you think about it, end of September, so you're talking about September 30th, and then getting here by December 1st or so, that's still a pretty quick turnaround time. And again, with the CGCs and all their stuff, the going with PGX, and I know there's been some recent videos by these modern kiddo YouTubers that are kind of slamming PGX, and I'm going to address that at the end because it's really unfair and it's kind of biased because these YouTubers, I'm not going to name them, but I'm going to give them fake names like Prying Comics and Very Merry Comics and the California Dreaming Comic Book Investor. Especially those three, I've noticed that they slam EGX and PGX. And, the whole point of these guys is individuals. And again, I don't know them and I want to be respectful, but at the same time, it's kind of misleading. I know that from my understanding, they don't have a college degree. They don't work in a particular profession. They don't have a 9-to-5, and their source of income is flipping comic books. I'm not looking down on anybody of this profession, but when that is your profession, you're going to do things because you want to maximize today's dollars and forego futures or any type of ethical or long-term concerns or issues going forward. You're interested in getting top dollar today because that's, you decide to forego getting an education or working in a profession to flip comic books. So anyway, we'll talk about that towards the end. But this ensemble is amazing. And I've hinted it on Instagram and several videos. But this particular unboxing, we're going to be focusing on Dracula. That's right. With the Werewolf by Night special that came from Disney Plus, sparked a whole interest in these horror-based titles. And for the past year or so, they've been catching a lot of steam. I am one of those individuals that caught that bug. You guys know from my other videos, whether it be Tarot Witch of the Black Rose. I love all that evil, dark. I love metal. I love, we got an Iron Maiden shirt on here. That shit always interests me. But again, it kind of like, I just blew right past that stuff growing up as a kid. So it's kind of cool. And this is another reason why it's good to get back into comics in your 40s, 50s, and 60s, is because you get to be reintroduced to these things and enjoy them once again. A lot of the people that worked on these books are the same ones that worked on the Batmans, the Spider-Mans, the G.I. Joes that we all loved so dearly growing up. So why not? I mean, there's some good stories there. So without further ado, let's take a look at what PGX sent us for this month. Once again, I'd like to thank PGX for being the sponsor for this episode. PGX, if you're tired of the same corporate nonsense that CGC has been subjecting us for the longest time, consider making the switch to PGX. I've been doing this for over 2.5 years after switching from CGC, and I am totally happy with the quick turnaround times. I haven't gone through a price increase every 6 months. I've gotten wonderful quality as far as the end product. And I just enjoy these books. think they present well, they look well, and all that negative stuff that I mentioned earlier is not deserved. So without further ado, let's go and look at the first book, which I'm going to say we're going to start off with the bang, because I've been after this book for quite some time, and I want to give a special thanks to Sun City Comics on Instagram, who were kind enough to hook me up with this book at a very great price. And again, I know with all that, Instagram, you don't know, you're unsure, it's good to know there are few reputable sales, and Sun City Comics definitely deserves a consideration. And just look at their inventory. You'll see what I'm talking about. But again, we do these showcases because we don't focus on the monetary aspect. Yes, it's present. You'd be stupid not to have them factor in. But it's just a way for us, especially Generation X, to kind of enjoy, reminisce, reflect, and also maybe perhaps for you guys to consider adding to your collection. So the first book we're going to look at is Giant Size Chillers #1. And this is actually a one of one, because later this title will evolve into Giant Sized Dracula. So this is a one of one, and it's been skyrocketing. I think besides Dracula issue #1, this book has caught the attention by many collectors and these comic book flippers and stuff, that because you're dealing with so many new characters, and the way the MCU is going, you got to understand that Werewolf by Night was such a success that now everything is open. So, and plus Dracula being a public domain character, and with the emphasis on female characters, why not Lilith? And then you'll see when we look at issue #3, The Bride of Dracula. There's so many things, especially on those female characters, that we know the MCU likes to look at. So it's a smart reason, not just for your enjoyment, but again, obviously, for picking up and getting such titles graded. But this book, what makes this book why I want it, it's so fucked up, it's insane. I don't know how this book got past the comic codes of authority. You're dealing obviously with murder, you're dealing with abuse, domestic violence, battery, like espionage, cheating in the government, because Dracula is trying to get a diplomatic immunity of all things. Like, what the fuck? Like, so the fact that as Angela, who is Martin O'Hare's daughter, gets pregnant by her boyfriend out of wedlock, oh, shame, shame. And also brings to the fact, Dracula, a lot of people don't know this, but Dracula was actually created to scare off people from having premarital sex. If you think about it, I know all these other YouTube channels don't really address this, but when you read about it and you know a little bit about the history, Dracula was an anti-premarital sex campaign that just caught on. Because you think about it, Dracula is biting, spreading human, blood, urine, semen, or bodily fluids. So he's exchanging bodily fluids unprotected, and it yields a negative results. And usually he's after beautiful women. So that's another thing. If you think about it, this makes sense. Dracula is an anti-premarital campaign to not have sex. This book was released in March of 1974, and you also got to consider, you got a bunch of icons that worked on this. Mark Wolfman was the writer, Gene Colan was the penciler, and John Romita Sr. did the cover. So right there you have three of one of the Mount Rushmore-like figures that worked on this title. And the fact that it is one of one and it evolved into another title also makes, this book was neglected for much of its life. For it to get that sudden push that it's been getting and being sought after is wonderful to see. Higher grades of this book, because we got a 4.0, a respectable 4.0, are demanding anywhere above the $1,000 mark. And I give such numbers like that. It's above 1,000, below maybe 7,000, just to give you a ball, or 10,000, just to give you a ballpark. But it is climbing like a skyrocket as far as the demand and the purchases of this wonderful title. And PGX did a great job. I did have this clean and press. Believe it or not, I picked, like I said, Sun City picked it up, and the lady said that it's gonna be a little greater, and I said that's totally cool. I'm more interested in the book. Does the cover look good? And she's like, yes, it does, and yes, it does. The cover looks phenomenal for being in 1974. Obviously, you could see the little marks, and I did get this book cleaned and pressed, which I've been saying is a must for everybody. Whenever you send these old books in, spend that little bit extra money to get your books clean and pressed. And PGX is in-house. I think even these modern comic kiddos will agree. They actually do a really good job. They're in-house services. Obviously, when you have something maybe more value, like Amazing Fantasy 15, there are outside grading presses that I would recommend over in-house. But for stuff like this, it's just good to get everything done in-house, plain and simple, instead of mailing out to one person, then having them or you mail out once it's done. It's just more of a headache. For us guys that work 9 to 5, pay mortgages and stuff like that, it's easy to utilize this service. And let's take a closer look at the book. On the top, PGX includes the origin, first appearance of Lilith, the daughter of Dracula. It's the only issue because it evolves into giant-sized Dracula. We got Mark Wolfman, Gene Collin, and John Romita on the cover. Again, a beautiful presentation. Who cares if it's a 4.0? I got this book, and the back and the cover look great. So, again, a wonderful job by PGX to do the best. Had they not done the clean and press, I would think this would probably be in the 3 or maybe 2.5. So, for them to bring this up to a 4.0 and to have this issue is a big win. And again, like I said, I've been after this book for about 2 years. So to finally get it, finally find it, and then get it is definitely a huge win for me in my personal collection. Okay, so now we're going to start focusing on the actual run, Tomb of Dracula. And there's several key issues to keep in mind as you're exploring this run. Obviously, issue number 1, 2, 3, 7, 10, the first appearance of Blade, and I think there's a few in between. And then, of course, issue number 70 is the last one, which is definitely a good book to pick up because of the print run is very low, and it's the final of that run of Dracula's death in that one. But this, again, is the facsimile that came out a few months ago, or maybe a year ago. And these are great options. I love these. I actually sent in my Amazing Spider-Man issue number 1, Superman number 1, Fantastic Four issue number 55, and this one I'm going to be mailing it in to get graded by either PGX or EGS. I'm going to lean towards EGS on this one just because I like that custom label on it. So I think getting a custom Dracula label, it's going to look pretty sweet on display here in the retro room. So let's take a look at some of the books that PGX graded for me for the Tomb of Dracula. Now keep in mind, issue number 4 or 2, I forget which one, is actually at PGX right now to be graded. So it's not featured, but I did mention it during last week's episode, as well as it's over on Instagram to see what that issue looks like. Okay, so our next book we're going to take a look at, it's actually Dracula issue number 3, which came out in April of 1972. We have Archie Goodwin writing the story and Glenn Collin with the inking or the penciling. And again, this book is actually starting to pick up a little bit more traction, and it's actually on the cusp of exploding. Why? Because there's a Hollywood insider rumor that Taj Nidal will be squaring off against Blade in the upcoming Blade MCU movie. Now, with the other recent rumors of Blade going back into the writing stages, that remains to be seen if they're going to keep that aspect of it, and that's going to come into the MCU. Now, with that said, this is Taj Natal's first appearance, as well as Rachel Van Helsing. This is another great storyline because Dracula again goes back to Britain, and it's actually setting up, which will come out in issue number 4, which is the Bride of Dracula. So we already talked about Lilith, Dracula's daughter. Of course, you need a mama, so there you go. We're going to have the Bride of Dracula, and that's the book actually that's being at with the graders as we speak. I sent that out this morning to be graded. So again, issue number 3 and 4, very good issues, first appearances of some key and huge spec that could possibly end the Blade movie. So again, if they're going to bring Taj to square off against Blade, it's just a matter of time before Dracula, makes his MCU debut as well. So this book, actually, there's a lot behind it that is right there at the cusp but could be spiking. But again, it's just a cool book, cool story, wonderful to enjoy. This book got a very low 3.5, and that's okay. It was a reader's book. I picked it up when I visited A&H Comics in Miami. I saw it back there in the bins. I wanted to save this book. The cover looks fantastic. Yes, it does have the typical loving, as I like to call it, but still the cover's intact. The colors are still decent, and the back cover is also intact and still decent. PGX did a great job saving this book. Believe me, it was a lot worse when I sent it in. So the team there did a fantastic job. This is a well-earned, respectable 3.5. You're talking about 1972. So that book has been out in a box somewhere in many collections, I'm sure, since 1972. So you got to think about that. And is it more important to have the book or get that high grade? I mean, to me, I rather have the book. So even though this is a 3.5, I'm ecstatic. I'm happy. This is great. This book is going to be big. Now, getting a 3.5 means that I could be on the hunt. Maybe there's going to be a 4 or 5 or 6. So I have the option of upgrading this book later down the road. But for now, I'm very excited. And that's how modern comic book collecting should be for us older guys. I think just getting those books, sending it in to get preserved like this, saving this book from what probably would have been a terrible fate. So this is a good 3.5. You got to keep that in mind. And I think modern comic book YouTubers don't get that. They just see dollars and cents. And that's the tragedy. This is a wonderful book. So Dracula, issue number 3. Big potential spec book that is being overlooked at the moment, but it's just a matter of time. All right, so as we continue on with our blood-soaked unboxing extravaganza featuring Tomb of Dracula, the next book is actually really interesting. And I'm talking about Tomb of Dracula, issue number 11, which came out in May of 1973. Again, Mark Wolfman and Gene Colan are again the dynamic duo still working on this great run. And here's something that's interesting. Now, I mentioned those key issues and how going after some of the issues that are around key issues can also be just as rewarding. Now, issue number 11 is coming right off of that iconic, legendary issue number 10, the introduction of Blade. Now, we begin with the aftermaths from that encounter with Blade. And also what makes this issue really interesting is that we discovered that Bram Stoker's Dracula is canon as well. So Dracula has to deal with not only his nonsense and craziness, but also the fact that there is a portrayal of him that's hitting theaters or out in plays. So the fact is that version is more popular than him, but it's him. But still, it's just weird that kind of like dynamic of, hey, that's me up on the screen, or being portrayed, and I'm even worse than that. So that makes I think I found that really fun and interesting. Also, we get a mention of Taj Nadal, which again is going to be for Blade and Taj to be. This is the first issue, I would think, that has both characters mentioned in the same comic book. So again, what happens with this Blade movie is going to really, really have meaning on. These books are getting popular now, but they're going to be more popular once those rumors are confirmed. And again, like I said, with that script going back into writing because the actor wasn't too happy with certain elements, it remains to be seen what they take and whether or not those gossip rumors are going to be true. But again, it's just fun. Now, this book got a 6.0, a little bit better, a lot better. And again, 1973 is a long time. And again, I picked this up at H&M Comics in Miami, the third oldest comic book shop in the East Coast. Check out that video. And I like this because it's beautiful. It looks better than a 6.0. The back looks wonderful. Again, PGX did a great job with the cleaning. Oh yeah, I see. A little bit on the top right. I know you can't see with the damn glare, but a little bit on the top here. That's what knocked this book down. But that's okay, We're not we don't care about getting 9.8 CGC onlys and flipping books. It's the enjoyment and fun. And this is a great book. A lot of fun I had reading this online. And that's what I do. A lot of people ask me, and I'll say it. I'll pick up the books and then I'll read the comic online, so I don't further damage or do anything to the actual book. And then I submit them into PGX or EGX for grading. So I enjoyed this. This was a lot of fun to read. It was a surprise, but inexpensive, but still a key fun book to get. Okay, so the last book we're going to feature in our special PGX unboxing of Tomb of Dracula is going to be issue number 14, which came out in August of 1973. Again, Wolfman and Colin are the dynamic duo, and they did much of this entire arc. They did entire run of Dracula. They were mostly the two contributors to this amazing run that is finally getting the appreciation that it rightfully deserves. Now, for me, the cover caught my attention. Again, I picked this up at A&H Comics in Miami, like I mentioned in the other, when we looked at the other book. But again, the cover art is phenomenal. It fully captures what Dracula, when you think of the Bram Stoker Dracula, this image is pretty much sums it all. And that's why I picked this one out, is because of that. The story itself is amazing and often overlooked. And I like how PGX makes a notation that Blade's in it. And yes, Blade has finally killed Dracula, stabbing him right through the heart. Now, before the vampire hunters are able to dispose of his body, Dracula has his sympathizers, and they quickly break into the morgue to take away his body. And of course, that means he's going to be revived and brought back to life. And that will be the case as we continue with this issue. But we see it also a play of how the villagers are split between pro-Dracula and against Dracula. And the fact that Blade is leading the heroes. We also haven't mentioned that Taj Nadal is alive as well. He survived his pending doom. But you see all the elements that, could be incorporated into this supposed Blade script. And again, with the recent news that the actor portraying Blade was not happy with the script. So it remains to be seen what elements are they going to incorporate. But if I was him, this entire story arc makes a lot of sense to make a captivating story for the MCU. So you have Taj, you have Dracula, you have Blade. All of this type of, cat and mouse games that's going on makes an excellent story. A little bit from this issue, a little bit from issue 11, a little bit from issue 10 to even 13 and 14. It totally makes sense, and it totally shows why it's so awesome to, even though you didn't grow up with these titles, maybe you overlooked them, that now is a good time at this stage in life to go back, revisit, and enjoy it to its fullest. And I am kicking myself why I didn't do this when I was younger, because I've been on a great journey with this. And again, with the success of Werewolf by Night, you know, it's opened up Pandora's box to this side of the MCU. You know, we know they're going to do a Young Avengers. They got the main MCU stuff. Then they got this Werewolf by Night and the darker side of the MCU. So I think we're being positioned for a lot of cool stuff. And maybe Loki wasn't your cup of tea. Maybe, you know, Black Widow or She-Hulk or whatever. But that's okay. There's something for everybody. And I think that's how they're kind of approaching the MCU going forward with Disney+. But PGX did a great job. This book got a 5.0. And again, these were reader copies that I felt that deserved to be preserved. I mean, the fate of being put in a short or long box in some dark and dusty corner, they're this significant in value? Yeah, they will be, and they are, but not so much where they're breaking the bank. The most important thing is they're preserved, able to enjoy them, and able to appreciate them. I like how they made that Blade's in this book. It kind of makes this book stick out a little bit more when people come and visit and tour my collection or what have you. So Dracula issue number 14, winner, winner, chicken dinner. All right, so that brings us to the end of this unboxing episode. And I want to talk about, just for an editorial, is that several of these comic book YouTubers, I'm not going to mention them by name, and I don't want to be disrespectful for anybody, but the point is that they're presenting things that I don't think that are not presenting the full story. First of all, their intention is, like I said, I don't know them. I know it seems like they don't work a 9 to 5. Their primary source of income is flipping comic books. So again, to each their own, what have you. I think that I do this for fun. That's not my, I don't do this for a living, and as far as investments, the whole concept of the grading is there's no governing body. There's no SEC. There's no FDIC. So for them to be like a form of investment as far as like for your retirement, it to me is ludicrous. You invest in stocks, IRAs, mutual funds, you invest in real estate, even classic cars. There are some things that overseeing that. The way that grading is, it is subjective. It's not, they have these overstreet guidelines and stuff, but when a company says that we're overstreet, CGC, we're overstreet compliant. Okay, what percentage of compliancy is that? Why are you the big dog in this whole thing? And it just seems like they have strategically squashed all these smaller companies. And they have people like these YouTubers that make sure that they're suppressed and squashed. It's a truly monopolistic competition. They could shit in a box and hand it to you and say, you're going to pay this and you're going to enjoy paying this. And for me, being an auditor for all these years, that's not good. That's not good for us. That's not good for us to pass down to our children. Comic book instills values that we've incorporated as adults. Comic book storylines, good versus evil, do the right thing. And as far as investing, if you take care of your thing properly, put it in a bag, seal it, secure it, make sure it will be a future. So it does teach good things to be in investing and taking care of things and being tidy, neat, organization. Those are excellent lessons to instill. But the fact of the matter is, like, a lot of these comic book YouTubers, like I said, don't work. They buy and sell comics. They think going to school is too tough for them, yet they're giving investment advice. In the one case, the guy graded a PGX book that was made in a really tough time for PGX. Like, they wanted to grow and expand. They hired some new CGC experienced employees, and those employees turned out to bite them in the ass. And they messed up on several orders, and because it went to the wrong hands, those errors, got magnified, to so much. I know the owner for PGX doesn't like to talk. He doesn't like to be here on camera. He's a shy person. All he cares about is doing the best job and making his company grow. And you guys know I've been doing this for over 2 years. I've had no issues with PGX. None whatsoever. Delivery, service, the quality of the product. And I'm sure CGC has errors. I know one guy, I can mention his name, Min Hunter Comics, waited 14 months for his books to come back. PGC does make mistakes. All these companies have errors. There is a quality control percentage that, regardless whether you're Panasonic, GE, IBM, or whatever, that do have issues in QA. But the one thing getting into the wrong hands explodes into this. And I think that's unfair, because no one blows up everything that PGX does. And they do a lot more than these smaller companies. And these companies have to compete with a corporation, and that's a tough task. I tip my hat to these small, and that's what America is about, these small business companies. But it's just weird how these YouTubers, these modern comic flippers, they're so concerned about getting the top dollar for selling their books today that they totally disregard the future. Whether having a company like CGC is actually detrimental, because the whole goal for PGX, EGS, is to have CGC come to them so they could form their own comics code type of thing where they all follow a universal grading guidelines. But PGX does not want to come to the table at all. I've heard this many a times. EGS and PGX have asked, let's make our own governing body with guidelines and stuff that we all follow. PGX, why should we even bother doing that? We have control over everything. We have people that we don't even have to pay that are destroying you guys and promoting us. They're getting free advertisement, free exposure, and free destroying your competition. PGX is, like I said, EGS is sitting pretty, and they have these mouthpieces doing this stuff for them, and they don't have to give them anything. And then as far as these YouTubers, they're not too concerned with futures. They're concerned about, I need to sell this book. I need to get the top dollar for this book. So only 9.8s and CGC only. I don't even know what this book is or what this book is. Who cares? All they care about is 9.8 and CGC only. And to me, that's just sad. That's not what this hobby is about. So when you watch these anti-PGX and EGX videos, just remember they're collecting the ad revenue because they're a lot bigger than this small ass channel. So it's a win-win for them, but it's a lose-lose for the general consumer, because the normal, Joe and Jane has no idea the difference between PGX or CGC or EGX. They just see the book that they once knew that looks nice in a presentation. They don't know all that stuff. The top dollar guys are trading amongst themselves. So it's not like they're appealing to a general public. They're selling amongst themselves, while the general public, they just want the book. They don't really care about all that other stuff. So as long as it looks nice and displays well, but it's just a weird thing to get into for a income. And I just think that they should be more open, and they should give other these smaller companies a chance, because for them to like badmouth them, I mean, I don't say things bad about CGC, like you shouldn't go there. It's everybody, it's America. You could do what you want, but at the same time, I'm not going to badmouth anybody. It's just, I try to recommend PGX and EGS because I've been using them and I like the service and stuff. So if I'm getting treated nicely and I like the outcome of course I'm going to recommend it to you. I'm not a paid spokesperson. I get a little bit of a discount when my books get graded, but that's about it. And again, I work a 9 to 5. I went to college. I have a degree. I have a mortgage. I have 2 cars out. You know, I have an investment portfolio for when me and my wife get old. But comic books is not, buying and selling comic books isn't a very smart thing to do for your retirement or a great way to make a living. I don't want to be the one going to a nice formal dinner party and then you know, there's a doctor, an engineer, a lawyer, and what do you do for a living? I buy and flip comic books. Yeah. Just think that's the type of reaction you're gonna get. So just when you watch those videos, just realize that they're saying that stuff because they want to get top dollar for their books today, and there's not, you know, that's their source of income. That's their only source of income because, you know, they don't want to work in a profession. Anyway, and I'm not saying that to be negative. It's just, that's the way it is for them, and that's what they want to do with their life, and all power to them. Anyway, this is Shabu RU. Thank you, and we'll do another PGX unboxing because we got a lot of books that came back. So stay tuned. We'll also do another video for comic book pickups for the month of December. We'll see you next time. Have a good one. Bye.